Hello and welcome to Irreverent. You know, by the way, I'm your host for this week, Levi. But before we start, I do have a confession to make. And honestly, I shouldn't be podcasting today because I'm feeling a little weaverish. And in fact, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm afraid my health is weaving me. I think we can all agree that I've got a weavy severe case of Weaver fever. Eli, say hi. He's my co-host for this week.
You know I have the power to just stop this at any time, right?
What?
Fittingly, I titled this episode Clown Contest.
Hey,
You've already
leave
won.
me alone, Eli. Leave me alone.
Actually, to be fair, you're competing with McLaren and Ferrari, so
Oh, yeah. No, they're dying of Weaver fever at this point. They're much more than Weaverish. They,
I'd do better strategy calls than them.
uh, anyway, welcome to Irreverent. That's right. Eli Weaver's my co-host, joining me this wild week on Irreverent, where unfortunately it seems like for a second week out of three, it's just kind of like, wow, we got racing to talk about, but it's not good racing, that's for sure. Not the best racing. But this week we are going to cover a lot of open wheel stuff. IndyCar. We already promised we talk about the turbo hybrids, and we're going to do that. That's going to be the first thing we talk about is the turbo hybrid race, where there's at least one Mexican in open wheel racing doing well. Unfortunately, the other Mexican in F1 isn't, and we're going to talk about F1 this week in Silverstone. And we have a great special guest lined up for this week who is currently playing pickleball, but I'm sure he'll be available when we need him. And lastly, of course, we got some news to get into, just a few pieces, but overall should be a decently brisk, kind of a graze of irreverent just for your week. But first things first, we're going to get into IndyCar. And to do that, Eli, go ahead and start us off while I eat my burger.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, this was after a stupid long period of build-up. Let me see if I can't find it. November 2022 is when the work on the hybrid engine started. And then they decided to introduce it in the middle of the season. Because that's a great idea. But yeah, so IndyCar finally
Hey,
introduced its hybrid engine. Do you want to
before we
say?
go on, I do want to say, listeners, when I was a kid and I played with Hot Wheels, I always introduced tech updates in the middle of my seasons. But then again, I'm a horrible role model, so you can't follow everything I do.
The reason it took this long for them to start deploying it is because of reliability issues. But anyway, yeah, so we finally got it. And this is a bit different than other hybrid systems that we've seen in other racing series because instead of using a battery, they decided to use low density supercapacitors, which can only hold enough charge to power the engine for, I believe, 4.2 seconds at a time.
The point.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The reason for this is mainly because IndyCar refuses to update its chassis ever, so they had to find a way to cram this in without making any actual alterations to the engine. So it's actually squeezed between the gearbox and the motor. Which, again, is kind of weird, but sure. And
Well,
so what they can do is, whenever they deploy it, it gives them about 60 extra horsepower for that time period, and I believe it's about, they're allowed to deploy it for up to 8 seconds a lap, I want to say. I might be remembering that wrong. If it sounds like I'm explaining this poorly, I actually have some understanding of how the tech works behind this. The commentators did not, and they explained it worse than me. I was kind of hoping that they would have explained it well so that I didn't have to come up with something on my own, but then they didn't, and I've been awake for 20 hours straight, so, sue me.
I, you know what? I feel like it's good to go in maybe on our initial feelings of the hybrid system because, spoiler, for me, I'll just go first. I'm the host. I'll go first. For me, when I heard IndyCar was going to have a hybrid system, I didn't know really how to feel because, yes, it's not like we haven't seen an open wheelers before, obviously, and it's been pretty okay. I just feel like IndyCar, it was a way that they were going to once again kind of blend in with Formula One. And it's always kind of been nice that IndyCar has stuck out in enough ways where you can tell not just by like sight, but sound as well what an IndyCar is. And now that they're kind of just sounding like Formula Ones, it's kind of like, what is IndyCar's goal? Like, I know I
Well,
talk about this a lot because with now,
the thing with this is the
what
way this hybrid works did not change the engine sound at all.
really?
Yeah, so that was part of what I was about to explain. One of the major differences between how IndyCar's hybrid works and how we see it in a lot of other series is theirs is only active deploy. That's the thing about the supercapacitors, right? They can't do slow deploy over long periods of time. They dump power quickly.
I should have entitled this the longest Eli 5 segment ever.
I mean, hey, we got new tech introduced mid-season. That's kind of what that segment's about. But no, it's... And also, technically speaking, the 24 Hours of Le Mans episode was an entire explanation to a question of Isaac's. But no, that's the big difference, is there's no passive deploying of this hybrid system. It basically acts as a different form of push-to-pass. Instead of the normal push-to-pass where it's a limited amount across the entire duration of the race, this is a limited amount per lap, but they can use that same amount every single lap, assuming they recharge enough of it.
So coming at this from a listener's perspective now, why do we even need this?
Because Honda was threatening to pull out if it wasn't added.
Okay, reason enough, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, like I could give you like
But
all
Honda...
of the PR spin, but that's what it is.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Very good. Well,
Now, the
I'll
thing is,
accept
the
it.
drivers did seem to actually quite like it. Because something else that's actually special about this that sets it apart from push-to-pass is it's actually also going to be available on ovals. And the way they're doing that...
Which, spoilers, we're definitely going to...
Yeah, no, the way they're doing...
We're totally going to talk... Yeah, we're totally going to talk about next week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The way they're doing that, for anyone who's questioning that and has any idea how a hybrid system works, and is wondering, if they aren't braking, how is it going to charge? They have a button that lets them, on straights, if they want, drop some of their engine power to instead recharge the capacitors. The idea is, with longer straights and on ovals, you can use that when you're drafting so that you can maintain the gap if you wouldn't be able to go for a pass anyway. And then, on the next lap after you have that charge, use it instead of wasting the engine power just sitting in the draft. That's the theory. We'll find out tomorrow.
But we're going to see it.
Yeah. But another fun thing that this does is if you activate it and push to pass at the same time, for the first time in, I think, like 25 years, an IndyCar has over 800 brake horsepower.
Wow.
Yep.
That is very, very good.
Yeah. Almost no one does that because it completely destroys your tires, but, you know.
It's Bridgestone's fault. Bring better tires, honestly. It's a skill issue.
And it also solves one of IndyCar's biggest problems. Or it would, if there wasn't a software error. Because since it's an electric motor, they can also deploy it to kickstart the ICE, the internal combustion engine, which means no longer having to do full course cautions every time somebody stalls. In theory. As we learned in practice, there's a
Uh,
software error that doesn't let them always do that. It works sometimes,
it's unfortunate.
but not all the time.
Software, man. You know, racing was better when there was no motherboards in a race car. We can all agree.
Um, as someone who knows how things are built, I don't think you mean that.
I do. I think
There,
I think cars with I think I'll rephrase it this way. It's kind of like Pocono. I think heavy high software cars are more fun to drive, but it doesn't create better racing and makes it more complicated.
no. My point, what I'm saying is, um, basically, since there has been anything other than an analog tachometer in a car, there's been a motherboard.
Well, you know what I mean, like all of this stuff when like cars can self-start and stuff like that.
It's funny. David Land pointed out that they still use the um, external starters for the start, which means that even though the cars can self-start now, the drivers start your engine call out still means nothing because the drivers can't start their own engine on the grid.
Pretty unfortunate.
It is so stupid. And also, like, it's a spec series. Why did these cars not already have starters? I'm
I
not
don't
going to
know.
get in that rant again.
It's a good rant to have because I think that's why NASCAR's cautions have always been maybe not something heavy to complain about is because all the cars self start. And I think that's the thing is with this new Cup car, um, racing is still pretty good, but definitely like I think that's why a lot of people really like Gen 4 and even Gen 5 and Gen 6. Like the cautions were just so quick. Well, I mean, still now they're pretty well made, but like NASCAR cautions have always been quick, and a lot of them have been thrown out because they can self start. The cars are just a lot more independent than an Indy car right now in past years.
So here's the thing. And I completely agree with you on that point, because it's the same thing with F1 when they had starters in them, is like, you spin, they throw the yellow flag so that people are cautious in that, one corner so that they don't go wide and smack into you. But then once all of the whatever pack that was nearest you is gone, you refire your engine and start going, assuming you don't beat yourself. But
Yeah,
it did help. It actually
it
does seem
did.
like, especially once that software glitch gets fixed, um, it's going to help because, and we'll get into it more, but towards the end of the race, a driver spun, stalled, and it looked like for a second they were going to throw the full course yellow. But he was able to fire it back up and get back into the race, meaning that the last couple laps weren't yellow flagged.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, the quicker they can do this, the more it'll fix their glaring issue.
Yep. Like that kind of goes to show that
But
one of my big complaints, the whole safety car every 30 seconds for any minor thing, having a self starter solves that problem.
now we just have to find a way to make the safety car not be 10 laps long.
Hopefully, the self starter will also help with that too, most of the time. Also, I want to. So before we get into some of the more details, I also want to point out something kind of weird. I think they were doing this because the hybrid was introduced, so it's like a sustainability thing. But they were also really weirdly emphasizing the fuel company. Every time someone pit for fuel, they were talking about how he's filling up with that Shell renewable fuel.
Oh my god! No, Eli,
Every single pit stop.
If you think that's weird, then what I need you to do this Sunday when if you listen to the NASCAR Pocono race, listen to it on MRN, because every time they go to get a pit stop, it's 4 Goodyear tires, and I hope our listeners know who he is. It's
I mean, the Goodyear, like, they call out the tires, too. Like, that's something they always do. But this is the first time I've heard them, like, doing a whole marketing spiel for the fuel company.
Oh, yeah. No, that's... Yeah, I'm trying to remember the dude's name. He's the pit road dude. He talks like he has bread in his mouth. But he's like every time the driver goes down pit road, he's gonna be like, and Kyle Larson in his box for 4 Goodyear tires and a Widow Drake of Sunoco fuel.
It's just so weird.
I hate that I can't. I can't. I'm gonna Google it. I hate that I can't remember his name, but I hope that if there's a NASCAR audience, you know who I'm talking about.
Anyway, while you look that up, I'm going to talk a little bit about...
Yep.
Oh, you got it?
Dave Moody. Dave Moody, that's it.
That's an incredible name.
Dave Moody is... Yeah. It's so disturbing when he calls it a little drink of Sunoco fuel. Like, Dave, stop. Like, he's as bad... if you guys remember, like, the dude on the 24 Le Mans calling them, like, big, hot, thick slicks or big, fat, chunky rain tires.
Big fat wet chunky rain tires.
And that what's sad is that's all we heard though. Like I went to bed. I don't know what other horrible things he said while we were in bed.
I don't want to. I had nightmares about just that. Anyway, on the qualifying. We're gonna have a lot of commentary about commentary this weekend. Another first in the modern era of IndyCar happened in qualifying. So the top 6 ends up being Alex Palou, followed by Pato O'Ward, David Malukas. You know, that guy Arrow McLaren dropped for a nobody. In 3rd, with the midfield team. Colton Herta, Marcus Armstrong, and then Marcus Ericsson. Now, what's special here is the gap from Alex Palou to Pato O'Ward. Did you hear about this?
Was it the same time was laid down? Is that it? Or no. But it was really close.
0.0024.
Yes.
0.002 of a second.
Yeah.
It is the closest qualifying, I believe, in 20 years in IndyCar.
You know what's funny is Formula One should have larger gaps between qualifying, but Formula One has literally had 3-way ties in qualifying.
This year, yeah, like it is kind of weird. And that was between different teams. It's like when the world is it's like IndyCar's been a spec series for 15 years now. What are you doing?
How is this as close as we've gotten?
Yeah. But no, yeah. Incredibly close qualifying there. And everyone else was kind of a bit adrift at them. Mind you, for anyone who doesn't know, which I don't know how you wouldn't know, because if you're listening... I guess I'm talking to the two French guys again. Because everyone else who would ever even think about listening to this or even knows it exists lives in Ohio. But to you two French guys out there, the weekend this race happened, it was like 90-something degrees. That's Fahrenheit. You translate that to your fancy, schmancy metric units.
Stupid Celsius, you metric pieces of...
But
Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no. So like the track was like 130 degrees in the sun. this this is already a track with like a lot of high speed corner. Like this is not an easy track on tires. So yeah. Also, there was like some spattering of rain and stuff because Ohio. So very very fun and
Because Ohio.
yeah. But no, something else I want to point out is a driver who was not in qualifying. A driver who
Who's that?
you've not heard his name. I had not heard his name. I have no idea who this guy is or how he ended up in the race. And that man. Oh wait, no, there we go. He was in qualifying and he qualified last. His name is Toby Sorry.
Did some like random fan bring his like custom built Indy car and he somehow got past the officials?
No, you're gonna see that there's a reason that I'm bringing him up. Because this man had not tested an IndyCar with the hybrid. He had only ever had 1 day of testing with an IndyCar ever. He shows up. Apparently, before this, as far as I can find, this man's highest level racing series is like British F3 and a couple of Indy lights, like some races in Indy Lights. I don't even know how he ended up in this race, but he shows up, qualifies 26th. Do you know where he ended up in the race? On Mid-Ohio, a track that is almost impossible to pass, his first time touching the hybrid system, and his second time ever
Where?
in an IndyCar.
Where?
13th. This man overtook half the grid.
What team was he driving for?
Dale Coyne Racing.
Decent team.
Decent team, but also... What the heck? Nobody's ever heard of you.
You know, and I get that was like really good, but I mean, let's talk about how good Noah Siegel is. Like, I'm really glad they put him in that McLaren seat.
This thing, he only finished 4 places above him. Nolan Siegel finished 9th. This dude, who had never touched this car in his life, finishes 13th. After, like, I'm pretty sure that 90% of the overtakes in this race was him.
I guess Gran Turismo is a real movie. Like if you just go straight off video games, there's going to be a gamer out there who's just going to do it. He's the guy being a dude.
Yeah, it's just like, what the heck? Like, where did this come from? Like, did he
I bet
deliberately
you could put him in
qualify
there.
last just to show off?
Honestly, if you put him in Checo's seat, I think a lot better things would happen.
No, I just realized I got that wrong. I gave Nolan Siegel's qualifying position, not his race finish position. Nolan Siegel finished 20th. That is
Obviously, much
7
better.
positions behind the guy who started last.
Time for Tony Kanaan to get in the IndyCar and replace him.
See, the thing is, when I heard about this guy, my immediate thought was, so he's going to be announced as Arrow McLaren's driver next year, and it's going to be announced that Nolan Siegel didn't actually have a contract. But seriously,
They need to ensure. They need to ensure the future of their team.
yeah, like apparently this is like a 28-year-old British dude who just showed up and was like, anyway, I'm gonna just be awesome.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear of this guy until you said it, but that's sad. He should get more praise. I should have heard about him.
Yeah, no, the only person I heard talking about him was David Land. Nobody else ever said anything about him, and it's like, this is actually kind of legendary.
We all want to be that guy.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, he's the only person who actually did anything interesting in the entire race. Spoiler alert, the reason that we've spent a whole lot of time talking about nothing to actually do with the racing is because it wasn't a great race. It was in fact so bad that the official highlights skipped 40 laps of the race. Yeah.
And listeners, me and Eli kind of wanted to, where there was no way we were going to make it, but we have, with bad around going to Mid Ohio eventually to an IndyCar race, and we're glad it wasn't this year.
Yeah. Like, it would have been cool to go to the first of the hybrids, but like, man, this was, for as close as Pillow and Award were in qualifying, for the first half of the race, it was not. Pillow just checked out and was like 6 seconds ahead for the first 40 laps. And then pit cycle started. Well, pit cycle started before that, but the ones that got rough started. So Pillow had 2 bad stops. I think it was his front left the first time got stuck. And then the second time his back right, if I'm remembering right. And that let Award get ahead of him. And Award managed to hold him off. Mostly because it is really hard to pass at Mid-Ohio. It is a very narrow track with a lot of high-speed corners. And a bunch of winding bits. And a lot of elevation changes. Which basically already wreaks havoc on aerodynamics. So you throw in dirty air. And yeah, no amount of hybrid was saving that. But
it was cool to see how hard Alex Blow was trying. Like, he completely ran off a corner at one point.
Did it a couple times. He almost spun on, what was it,
Yeah.
the second to last lap where he dropped his both tires off.
Yeah, no, it was so cool to see him trying that hard. Like, I feel like we never usually see Alex Pillow that uncomfortable. Like, he's usually either dominating for a win, or if he's not dominating, he's still kind of in control in some way, either like controlling the line defensively. But he never. I don't feel like I've ever seen Alex Pillow as the chaser. Have you? Like, to a degree where he's hopelessly in.
Yeah, we don't see him
he's hopelessly
pushing
in
much.
second. Like, I feel like this is perfect bait for like Alex Pillow haters to really like nip on. Like, see, once he's in second, he's just pedestrian.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like he has to practice overtaking all that often.
That is true. That is very true.
Most of his experience comes in defending. He's a little rusty. And to be fair, of all things to be rusty in, and for all reasons, being so dominant that you've not had to actually overtake somebody who was comparable to you in years, it's a pretty good reason.
Yeah, I think Alex Pillow is still leading by like a lot, though, right?
48 points. He did actually gain a pretty big win this race, because there was only one technical DNF. Unfortunately, that was on the formation lap. But it was Scott Dixon, who is in the championship fight. And what happened is his cells completely drained, and it caused his engine to lock up. By the time they were able to get it fixed, he was so far down that there was no reason in him running. So even though he came in second, it was not terrible for him race-wise. Not race-wise, championship-wise. And to be fair,
Yeah,
first race of the hybrid, which took this long partly because of reliability issues, for there to only be one DNF because of it, that's pretty good. Unfortunately, if
Mhm.
Scott Dixon loses the championship by less than a race win, it's going to be blamed on the hybrid, which is not going to be great
Yeah.
publicity.
I don't know though.
Yeah.
It's like Alex Palou has led more laps than 2, 3, and 4 combined. All of his top tens or top fives, and he has 8 of them. 3 poles, 2 wins.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's likely.
Just a
I'm just
victim.
saying that if it did, it would be bad. Beyond that, the only other interesting
I
thing that happened was New Garden thought they changed the rules on pit lane speed limits, so he decided to speed through the pit lane, and then decided to speed on the drive-through penalty he got for speeding in the pit lane, getting himself another drive-through penalty. Somebody really needs to get New Garden a rulebook.
well, maybe not this weekend because they'll win both Iowa races.
I'm just saying, like, seriously, that dumb excuse is gonna haunt him to his grave. Every single time he
The
makes any kind of mistake.
you mean like when he says I just didn't know?
When he was talking about the thinking that he was allowed to use push to pass on the first lap of a restart.
Oh yeah, totally. I believe him.
Yeah, that such a dumb thing to say, such a dumb excuse, especially when the rest of your team just copped up to messing up, and then you try to pull that. He's never living that one down. Nor should he.
I just I just didn't know I wasn't supposed to wreck my teammates.
Oh,
Well, at least if he goes out, it's with 2 championships.
true. Yeah,
I was
and
there
then
for a
like I'm.
second one.
Hmm?
Oh, I just said I was there for a second one.
Oh yeah,
I was
really?
first though.
Yeah. But what else was I about to say? Oh yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, the late on to the race, I think it was it the third from last lap or the second to last lap? I can't quite remember. But Roman Grosjean goes off, stalls. Looked like we were going to get a safety car that was going to cause some problems and mess up the end of the race. But the hybrid system let him just restart his engine, get back on track, and get going again. Meaning it was never even a problem. In fact, I don't. I might be misremembering this, but I don't think there were any cautions.
I can't help you out on that one.
Yeah, no. The only driver to not finish the race was Scott Dixon after DNFing early on. Every other driver at worst finished only one lap down.
Well, that I don't know though. Like at least you'd have a bunch of caution flags, but it's still dull either way.
No, that wasn't a good race, but considering what the recent IndyCar races have looked like, it's a good sign.
At least for racing.
Yeah, like we didn't spend 50% of the race behind the safety car did not need refueled this weekend. Which is a stat we're now tracking apparently.
Oh my gosh,
I really should start keeping a tally of
sad.
that. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much IndyCar.
Well, I am just happy Pato Award won. I was very happy.
Yeah, this one was actually on track instead of being given to him because of a disqualification.
That's what made it so good.
But it didn't come a month and a half later.
Spoilers. Do you want to hear who's at the uh, top of this? I just got the notification. You want to know who's on top of the speed charts at Iowa?
Is it Newgarden?
He's not even in the top 10.
What the
But it's
heck?
a Chevrolet, a Penske Chevrolet. Yeah, it's a Penske Chevrolet though.
Well, suddenly I'm interested.
Yeah, this is really weird.
Is it Pillow? Not Pillow. Pato?
He's second. He's second. Nope. Pato's third.
Hmm.
I'll give you a spoiler. He was really good at IMS.
Oh, McLaughlin.
Yeah. I think what happened was Newgarden, like I think Newgarden's setups have been accidentally altered to Scott. Now Scott's the guy winning on all the ovals.
Nah, Newgarden just thought he was supposed to take the pit lane instead of the actual track.
Hey, Joseph, why are you doing circles in pit lane?
I thought that's what the rulebook said now. Yeah. God.
Poor Joseph.
I mean, hey, don't come up with the dumbest, lamest excuse ever, and we won't mock you for it. It's an easy deal.
Oh, was Pato's other win Joseph Newgarden's disqualification?
Yes, yes, it was.
I was gonna say because I'm looking at the standings and I see Joseph with one win in my head, and it was automatically the opening race of the season, and also I'm like, oh wait, he won the Indy 500. Where did the other one go? Right, wait, was it Pato?
Yep.
Okay, very sad. Well, I personally don't have much more to say about this race other than it would be cool to get to go there at some point. But I also don't regret not going this weekend. But
I'm
it's
almost
fine. I
more
can't wait to see
interested
what the turbo hybrid.
in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship race there.
Yeah, me too.
More grip based
At least they have
GT3s.
a really good. Yeah, yeah. But that's all I gotta say. I'm just looking forward to Iowa, seeing what the turbo hybrid can do there. Hopefully, we'll have something good to talk about next week, along with our 6 hours of Sao Paulo discussion.
I mean, hey, it'll be two races. They can't both be bad.
Right. Absolutely right. And that's what we also said last year before Newgarden won both of them by basically coasting.
Yeah, but he doesn't know the rules anymore, so we don't have to worry about that.
Oh, that's true. He has early onset dementia.
Don't forget which one's the brake pedal and which one's the gas pedal next week.
Oh no. But well, do you have anything to say else?
Nah, that's I think we covered everything that I had.
How did we manage to drag that on for 40 minutes?
Because I gave a 20-minute explanation of how the hybrid system worked.
Man, we won't have much. Yeah, I guess there's no pressure on the F1 discussion. Yeah, well, thank you for Eli fiving that to everybody. It's gonna be interesting. I also forgot. Speaking of electric, I have some other news to talk about in the news section that I am excited, but also not excited for. You'll see. But yeah, you want me to go ahead and get into shift gears into second and go to F1?
I know you're the host. Why are you asking me permission?
Yeah. You know what, Eli? Shut up. Actually, leave me alone and let me talk about F1. You should be nicer to a guy who has a really bad case of Weaver fever, you know. Yeah, so take an Indiana Jones like map tour with me over to the United Kingdom where we go to Silverstone. And initial impressions of the race were I honestly thought McLaren was going to win. I thought Norris was
Should
going
have.
to do it. Yes, should have. I actually genuinely thought Norris kind of had the. I had this in the bag because Max's engine's kind of getting worn. He wasn't the fastest in practice and qualifying. I was like, if he maintains this pace, I definitely think Norris maybe not cruise to the victory, but maybe yeah, he'll just have an easier race until Mercedes took a 1-2 in qualifying. And I do believe it was Russell on pole. Let me check but I think it was Russell on pole.
Russell, Hamilton, Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Sainz. I think we're top 6.
Yeah. So I saw that and I'm like, of course, after George won last week, I was kind of like, that's nice. I'm sure that's a one-off Mercedes incident. We're probably not going to see him the rest of the year, maybe a few podiums. But when that happened, I'm like, well, it's still qualifying, but that's really good mojo. Like to go from winning your first race since Brazil 2022 to now you're taking up the front row, beating out McLaren and Red Bull. That's really, really good.
A
And
Red Bull.
oh, that's
There's
right.
something. There's something you skipped in qualifying.
Wait, there was another Red Bull? I didn't know anything about this. There's only one Red Bull, right?
Neither
Max
did he.
Verstappen's the. Wait, I always thought Red Bull was a one-man team. You mean to tell me there's a second Red Bull out there that I didn't know about? Why wouldn't I know about him, Eli?
Because the only person he qualified in front of is a guy who had a negative 50 grid penalty. He was qualifying. He qualified in front of somebody who was technically supposed to start negative 30th. He then started the race behind him, too. Well, technically.
Yeah, I'm looking at these results, and he only finished. There was one did not start, which was Gasly. There was one did not finish, which was Russell because of a water pump issue. There is only 2 drivers above them. I'm looking at one who is Zoe, who is 18th, and Perez, who finished in the second to last available spot, who didn't finish.
Yep. This man was only able to qualify a second and a half ahead of a person who only went out to put down a lap just so that he could technically be allowed to start the race.
Oh man, we're not even like getting to give our opinions on the race before I just triggered Eli. Like we have so much to talk about, but let's stay focused on the race because I have things to say too. But let's not bully him too hard until we finish the race because
I know, but like it starts in qualifying.
That's the thing. The sadness starts in qualifying, but Eli said there was only 6 good laps of racing, but as a host, I kind of differ. I mean, I feel like when I look for a race, when I look for a good race, I look for a race with lots of things going on. I like rhythm to my races. I like good, steady racing, but I also like to make sure that things are staying competitive. And I feel like for the most part, they definitely did. There was a lot of things going on. I think between the amount of leaders and, I kind of like, I'm already going to the end of the race, but Hamilton having to hold off Verstappen and Norris potentially charging hard. They were only a little over a second behind him by the end of the race. Like, I like seeing stuff like that where the doomsday clock is winding down and the guy has to make it to the finish. So I like that. I like that, the winner wasn't very clear because I do believe during the wet, dry, wet phase, Norris took the lead temporarily, right?
Wet, dry, wet. It went Hamilton takes Russell. Norris takes both of them. Piastri takes both of them. You have McLaren 1-2 for a while. We're going to get into that. There's a reason this episode's called Clown Contest. But Max starts battling back.
But yeah, we'll get to McLaren in just a second. But I was just going to finish my thought, Eli. I was going to say,
you asked me.
I kind of think this was like a decent. No, I did not. I did, but I didn't. It was rhetorical, but I'm so sorry. I'm bullying you, but it won't be as bad as you bully Checo, I promise. But I was just gonna say, yeah, I think it was a decent race. Like I'm gonna be very positive because I know just 4 weeks ago I was kind of on the ledge, and Eli kind of had to talk me off of it. Like and it was joking ledge, of course. Like I'm always gonna like at least pay attention to F1, but in terms of just complete interest in the sport this year. I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to like keep up with it too much this year. I mean, I feel like Verstappen is just going to kind of walk away with this, and Eli totally told me that Austria and Great Britain were going to be good races, and I totally told him, but it's hard for me to see them being good races. And I want to say, to me this year, I feel like Great Britain might be, in terms of race quality, probably at least one of the best races we've had, and just things going on like the wet dry wet provided plenty of entertainment with different leaders, and you kind of have shock things happen where Russell has a water pump issue, all of a sudden he's no longer a factor, and yeah, just between the enter McLaren clowns and between Verstappen kind of trying to get Emmental between that, and between Hamilton kind of finally getting that win, and not just any win, but I mean, like, if Hamilton's going to win, if I'm Lewis Hamilton, I want to break my streak. I'm kind of going to break it at my home track. So it's cool to see drivers win their home tracks. But no, to me, this was one of my favorite races of the year, and I'm gonna go back and keep watching it year after year and be like, that was a good race. I liked to see it. Anyway, go ahead, Eli. I'm done interrupting.
So here's my whole thing with it.
Lewis Hamilton won. We get it. You're racist.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm literally one of the two hosts of a racist podcast. What do you expect?
Well, I saw this meme, and it was like, I think it was like, it was back in the 30s when a group of white guys chased a black man. It was called the KKK. Now it's called Formula One.
My favorite one is, why is everybody calling Max Verstappen a racist? Of course he's a racist. It's his job. Anyway. No.
I didn't know it was still legal to beat. I didn't know it was still legal to actively beat black men in the year 2024.
Oh, but no, anyway. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, part of it is...
Because he's black.
No, but I do think of any of the drivers that were in contention for the win at any point in this race, Hamilton's the most boring one.
I was gonna say, I feel like breaking a winless streak after 2.5 years is decently exciting to me. But why keep going? But I was just gonna say, for me, this was nice. Like, this is what I hope happens to people like Lewis Hamilton, or like Jimmy Johnson. When I was a kid watching Jimmy Johnson go through his the end of his career and having all these bad races, I wanted nothing more for that man than to go to, and despite all the races and championships he won, I wanted nothing more than to see Jimmy Johnson win at Auto Club, because that's his home race. It's where he's dominated, and he hadn't won in a long time, and I wanted to see him win again. So for me, this was like, this Lewis Hamilton fulfilled that for me. It's like I wanted to see this guy.
Russell has never taken a podium at his home race.
Do I care? No.
Russell's never taken a podium at his home race. Norris has only just now started being competitive. Piastri finally had a chance to fight at the front. He's finally getting used to tire wear, tire management, and is now back up front. Max actually had to battle for the first time in a long time. Hamilton is washed. He's at the end of his career. He's irrelevant anymore. And everybody's like, oh, he finally broke the curse. He broke his winless streak. That car has been able to win multiple times in the past 2 years. He hasn't. And I don't think he would have won today if George's car didn't blow.
I feel like where you're coming at this is, you really wanted George to win because you thought he was faster, so because Lewis won, you're upset.
The thing is, I think of the top 5 qualifiers, Lewis was the slowest. Lewis won kind of off of luck. He did well when the rain first started, which got him into a good position to get lucky. But if McLaren weren't idiots with their pit stops, he doesn't win this race. If McLaren weren't complete idiots, it's a McLaren 1-2. If George doesn't DNF, it might be you'd have two McLarens in the top three. George probably would have been able to fight them. And I don't think Hamilton even gets the podium. Right? So it's kind of like, okay. It's not like, you know, and maybe I'll eat my words later in the season, but this doesn't feel like Hamilton's back. This feels like an old man got lucky.
I have been enlightened to one thing through all of this. I think you just hate Lewis.
I mean, what I realized with this race is I think Lewis is the only driver on the grid that I kind of just feel nothing about him winning a race. There are drivers that I get excited for, there are drivers I would get annoyed by, but Lewis just is like, okay. And especially when he wins like this.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say and honestly, I joke. I get where you're coming from. For me though, I think I've already talked about this, but listeners know I love rooting for old men. Like if I can, like my driver of choice growing up in all motorsport was Kevin Harvick, who was like 41 years old, kicking all these guys' butts. And throughout racing, I always find myself rooting for the old guy. Like what?
But that's the thing. Kevin Harvick was kicking those guys' butts. Hamilton's been losing to his teammate for 2.5 years.
Well, it's not like I'm gonna like hate Lewis because he's not winning. I mean, it's still fun to see old guys win. Am I allowed to be happy for this man? And Kevin Harvick was old and kicking their butts, and I feel like to the day Kevin Harvick retired, if Tony Stewart cared. No, you know what? It's a fact. To the day Kevin Harvick retired, because I was there at Michigan. I was there at the race when he won at Michigan. It wasn't luck. I was there watching on TV when he won Richmond the next race. It wasn't luck. It was just an old guy who's always going to be competitive in a stock car as long as the stock car is competitive and as long as he has the will to win. And I feel like the Lewis is washed thing. I'm gonna say this. I feel like I've watched enough old guys race cars to know that I don't believe Lewis is washed. I honestly don't believe any driver has truly gotten completely washed, except maybe for Checo. But no, like watching, yeah, what?
Here's the thing. Can you genuinely say to me right now, Lewis is one of the top 5 drivers on the grid?
I absolutely can, because Mercedes has not been a top 5 car. And in fact, they've probably been at best top 3. So logistically, Hamilton can only be as good as 5th on his best day. But no, I can say he's top 5 best easily. Like, unless Lewis really proves he's not. Like, unless Lewis really. Here's the thing: when people get washed, it's not like a mild thing where they just, I don't know, are kind of hanging around the top 10. When you're washed, you're really going to show it. And especially when it comes to like race quality, like I feel like if Hamilton was truly washed, it would have been a lot more mistakes on his in his racing side of like wrecking out, like getting in the gravel, stuff like that. That's what washed guys do. Hamilton still holds his line, holds his ground. Of course, he's over, is he 40 or over years old? Like, he's not going to be as sharp as he was when he was like Norris's age, but I still think at the end of the day, Lewis Hamilton can compete with these guys. Like, I believe, I mean, that's the thing. I can't name a driver who would be better than Hamilton in the top 5. Like, of course, there's maybe and Leclerc is not in the top five. Maybe in qualifying, but as a driver, Leclerc is not top five. I can, of course, say Norris and Verstappen are easily top five. Looking across the paddock, I would probably still put Fernando in there because Fernando
Russell.
has proven what he can do when the car is capable. No, Russell's not top five. Russell is top 10, but not top five.
He's been
I
doing better than Lewis for the
believe
past 2 years.
that's true, but also Lewis has really hated the car the past 2 years. George hasn't been the happiest, but I think George has maybe liked the handling better than Lewis.
That's a skill issue.
I don't think so. I mean, Lewis
There's
beat
more to get
George
out of that
Russell
car
last
than
year.
Lewis has been getting out of it.
Well, Lewis still beat him last year pretty soundly. Lewis beat him last year, and he's beating him. Is he beating them this year, or is just 1 point behind?
It's close,
I think
but
it's, yeah, 1 point behind.
like, that's the thing. You have to remember, you can't really have this new guy who's coming in and holding his own against you or beating you and not say that they're comparable skill level. If you don't think that Russell is a top 5 driver, then you can't really say that Lewis is.
Of course I can. If by your logic, I could say Felipe Massa is as good as Michael Schumacher.
Massa wasn't holding his own against Schumacher.
He absolutely was.
In individual races, but not most
yeah,
seasons.
Felipe could really hold it though. Or actually, you know what? Then that means Nico is better than, or is comparable to. Actually, you know what? Nico is comparable to Schumacher and Hamilton.
I mean, at the end of his
But
career,
no, I
yes.
mean, I think
That's my point right now. I'm
I
not
think
saying
George-
like if you look at the grand total of his career. I'm saying if you look at where Lewis is right now.
Lewis right now I think is still better than Russell. I really do. I'm not going to say it's by a mile, but I think Hamilton's still better than Russell.
But that goes to my point, right? Like,
But also Russell as a driver is a lot more. I don't know. I wouldn't. Here's what I'm saying. I feel like my thing with Russell v Hamilton is I trusted Hamilton with my life on those final Silverstone laps. If that was George Russell, I would. If that was George Russell, I wouldn't. I would be a lot more nervous.
Russell makes his mistake when he's chasing, not when he's leading.
I think Russell makes mistakes all the time.
Oh yeah, he's chasing all the time.
I don't know. I think my final thought is going to be Hamilton. I think is still better than Russell, and I feel like last season was a good indicator of how good Hamilton can be against Russell. And, 2022, it's hard for me to put that too much against Hamilton because, like, yes, George definitely beat Hamilton, and I was excited about it in 2022, but like to kind of see in the ways he would beat Hamilton, and when you read about how Hamilton would be the driver who was using all the experimental setups in 2022.
Oh God, not that stupid excuse.
No, that's not an excuse. That's a fact. Hamilton was the one using all the experimental, because that's the thing. Mercedes freaked out because they were kind of all of a sudden not the dominant team anymore. Very
And
undominant,
Hamilton
actually. And
asked for that because he couldn't get a hold of the car.
I don't think. I mean, okay, we can use that. Let's say Hamilton had a skill issue in 2022, but he's good because he obviously rectified that the next year and beat Russell.
It's just a situation where it's like Hamilton, with the first 2 generations of turbo hybrid cars, they sung to him. But these ones don't.
And maybe they sung to him more because, I mean, also I feel like I don't chastise a lot of these drivers for maybe taking a while to pick up with these new regs. Like Hamilton and a few others kind of need to adjust their styles because no, you can't, like, these are cars you can't really, wring the neck out of like you could with the, bodywork, barge board cars where you could run over curbs a bit, you could take a bump or two, do what you really needed to get that lap time. All of a sudden, like, that's the thing, because Hamilton had lived his life being able to drive F1 cars a certain way, and all of a sudden these new regs, now he has to completely adjust how he approaches, his turns and everything, where, like, how cool and calculated he has to be. Whereas a lot of guys coming in, like, like Russell, who had only been in a car, was it 2020, 21? Was he in there since
17.
2020?
It's like 17, 18.
Can't be true. That can't be true. I don't know. It's just Hamilton had driven for so long, and he also started these cars when he was 38. I don't know. I can't chastise him too bad for not needing to get used to him. It's like, this man is now 38 years old, dominated his entire life driving F1 cars. It's okay. You know what's a perfect example is Marc Marquez right now in MotoGP. Like, Marc Marquez is still one of the best riders in MotoGP history, and he's still comparable to, like, Francesco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. But, like, Marc Marquez, first of all, 2019. What about 2019? Okay,
yeah.
But yeah, like,
it was
I don't think it's
Leclerc 2017.
It's not fair to say Marc Marquez is washed because he's not, winning. Like, Marquez is kind of doing the Hamilton where he's still kind of in the mix. Yes, he's not dominant, but Marc Marquez had lived his entire life dominating MotoGP with a certain bike and a certain way of riding that he completely had to readjust to compete with these new young guys. And I can't chastise Hamilton and call Russell better than him because 2022 had been a rocky year for him. But no, I still believe that Hamilton is, he's going to have the edge, and we haven't seen George Russell in his prime, but I still feel like prime Hamilton is going to be, the better driver. But right now, I still believe Hamilton does have an edge still.
I say that's the thing. We're not
over
talking
Russell
about
just because of
prime to prime.
Well, that's why I said I still think he has it. Like, I still think Hamilton could take, Russell head on head, same day, same car. Like, they both feel good inside the car. I think Hamilton's going to win.
What Hamilton has is, most of the time, this is going to be weird considering some of the things I criticized him for, but I'll explain it more. What Hamilton has is the headspace, the mental game. That's his edge. Which sounds weird considering I criticized him for getting all mopey and letting that suck him up. But what I mean is Hamilton loses his head when he's running nowhere. And he doesn't really make mistakes. He just does nothing. Russell loses his head under pressure. Yes, because most of the races where Hamilton was getting depressed, he wasn't going to score points regardless. When
I'm
Russell
the same way
cracks,
when I play F1, to be honest.
Yeah. Basically, Hamilton's like a guy who's playing the F1 game, right? When you're running nowhere, you're just like, what's the point of doing another 50 laps of this? And you spin it into a wall. But
Fernando Naota, he's like, mate, I have no brakes, no tires. We're out of the points. And I
do not care. Yeah, no, that's the thing. But Russell loses his head when he's at the front, when he's under pressure. That's where Hamilton's advantage is. And that comes from experience. And that's why I honestly think that Hamilton is going to crush Leclerc next year.
Oh,
my other hot take of the day.
That's saucy. That was so saucy. Like, I was tired. Like, I was physically tired. But when you said that, like, there was this, like, I felt my aorta just start pumping when you said that. Like, I was just like, oh my, Eli, please stop.
Leclerc gets depressed even when he's winning.
I was about, like, you know what, Eli? That's a good one. We should totally do our Hamilton Leclerc preview now because I'm in. Like, because I know I think you feel the same way about Hamilton as I feel about Verstappen, which is kind of funny because you and I were the same age when both of them started dominating. Well, not started dominating, but you know what I mean. Like they were dominating. Like because when I I paid attention in 2022, so I was 18 when Verstappen started winning a bunch, and it annoyed me. And when you were 18, Hamilton would have been winning a bunch, and it probably annoyed you.
When I was 18, I had abandoned F1 because of Hamilton. To be fair, the rest of the field
You see, and
racing
that's why
wasn't that great.
I feel like that's why I come at Verstappen the way I do, and you come at Hamilton the way you do, and why I defend Hamilton, why you defend Verstappen is because, like, I don't know, it's just
To be fair,
when
there's
you're growing
another
up
aspect
watching
of
us,
the Hamilton thing for me.
but I
He's good
also feel
enough
like
that
it's
he
a
could be
nostalgia
allowed to have a
thing.
personality.
I think you know what? Let's stay with Hamilton Leclerc. You're just annoying me at this point. So let's do Hamilton Leclerc and who wins? Who wins? Well, actually, the more interesting question is Eli. Please explain that saucy take and why Hamilton is going to destroy Leclerc. Like, tell me why. Tell me why. Just tell me. Tell me why. Backstreet Boys. Tell me why.
So, it largely depends on Ferrari's competence level next year. We spent a lot of time roasting McLaren without going into details. The reason it's called Clown Contest is because Ferrari were also massive clowns this weekend. But anyway. Not anyway, that's actually to my point. It kind of depends on that. Because to be frank, if Ferrari act like they did in Silverstone, they're both going to commit suicide. They just are.
It's going to be a cult of depression.
Yeah. But, to my point, assuming that Ferrari gets their act together, and under Vasseur, they've been pretty good about that. Assuming they get their act together and are able to catch up and be competitive again, I think that what's going to happen is I don't think they'll have the fastest car, right? That's just like the way Ferrari develops things. They don't really tend to develop that fast. They're very much a like 2 steps forward, 1 step back in terms of development team, or sometimes 3 steps back. But so I think what will happen is we'll see them progress. We'll see them be. I think that what we'll see is they'll be the 4th fastest car, but it'll only be like a couple of tenths spread between all 4 cars, right?
Totally,
And
I'm into that.
yeah, so what we'll see happen is Leclerc being Leclerc and trying to make up that extra time going against the likes of Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Piastri, who are just as good, if not better than him. Which means that he can't magically add that time without going past the limits of the car. Which is going to cause him to have accidents, crashing. And that's going to mess with his mind game. Whereas Hamilton, I think, will be more content to just push the car to its limit, except that he's going to qualify like 7th, 8th, 6th. Maybe get lucky sometimes if one of the other drivers makes a mistake or has a bad lap or gets caught in traffic and qualify higher. And be content to just try and use racecraft, tire saving strategy to move forward. But Leclerc, when he goes into a downward spiral on a weekend, he doesn't recover. And that's what I think makes the difference. Lewis will tend to... Basically, Lewis will reach his lowest point really quickly and then start going up. Leclerc just keeps getting worse.
Are you saying all these years that Ferrari need some therapy?
I mean, the drivers do.
Hamilton's about to get his first therapist recommendation here soon.
Sure, Lewis already has one.
Oh, that's right. Well, thank you for mansplaining why Hamilton's going to beat Leclerc.
Also,
Hey, oh, what?
we are running long and our guest is waiting. But I also do want to mention
Oh,
the
what?
reason that I'm giving Ferrari such a hard time is because they decided to switch Leclerc to the inters like 5 laps before it was needed. So his inters were turned into slicks by the time the rain actually started, and then he was a lap down.
Wow.
He's the only driver that had to pit twice for slicks, if I'm remembering correctly. No, not slicks, intermediates.
Wow.
Yep.
Our guest is waiting. You say?
He asked me when he should be joining and if now is good.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I texted. He's ghosting me, so that's good. You said that. All right. So I don't know about you, Mr. McWeaver, but I am ready to get past this F1 and go into Eli 5. But final thoughts on the race weekend. I really liked it. I'm completely fine with Hamilton winning. Bring it on. Let's go. What was Hamilton's phrase besides Hammer Time? There was he had one like 2020 or 2019 or something like that.
I forget.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, whatever that phrase is, say it loud, say it proud. He's back, 100% back. Totally not washed. Eli's just being mean. Don't let Eli bully me. All right. So whenever he can get in, before we get our guest, is he definitely like ready to get on so I can do this?
I just messaged him to hop on whenever he's ready. So
Oh, well, oh, okay. That could be a second.
yeah,
Or it could not. Well, I guess we'll just keep talking about our final thoughts for the F1 weekend. I really like
Checo
the
needs to be
race.
replaced yesterday.
Oh, almost forgot. Okay, Eli, going to Checo
I was
because
expecting us
I
to
know I
save
have
that for
thoughts.
the discussion, but for the since we had a light news week, but
We can do a sneak preview. We can get an appetizer while we're waiting.
yeah. So, and this is part of why I was planning on saving it for that because it's there are rumors that Checo's contract for this season and also thus next year and the year after has an exit clause for when if by Spa he is either 100 points behind Verstappen or over 5 places in the championship behind him. He is currently at 118 points in 6th place, while Max is in 1st with 255 points. Now, I ain't no mathematician, but I think that's more than a 100-point difference.
I
Coincidentally,
win Spa.
at the end of the month, 2 weeks.
Holy crap! No, he's
Yep.
not going to make that up.
Nope. You basically have to win the next 2 races. But and mind you, the next 2 races aren't at tracks he's good at. Because the next 2 races are Hungary and Spa. There's only one race. There are 2 races left on the calendar that Checo's ever been good at, and that's Baku and Singapore.
I So I for one am all for Checo getting replaced, but
Well,
also
that's another fun thing.
why didn't we hear about these clauses? Why didn't we hear about these clauses until now?
because there's started to actually seemingly be talks behind the scenes about replacing him. Coincidentally, Liam Lawson did a shooting day at Silverstone in the RB20.
Huh.
Yeah. So, Danny Rick's going to finish this season in a Red Bull. And then they're going to decide whether he's going to be in it or Yuki's going to be in it next year. Or maybe Sainz. But yeah.
Honestly, it would be a dream team to have Sainz go to Racing Bulls and Ricky and Ricardo go to Red Bull.
But yeah, it's just like a... So, like, the thing is, in the standings, Max is at 255 points with Lando at 171. The Constructors is... Matt is... That's a bit of a tell, ain't it?
Oh, well.
It wasn't even on purpose.
I didn't, guys, whenever you're about to buy your first car, a Max Verstappen is actually, like, has really good, like, reviews and everything. Like, they have engines that last, they got good transmissions. I hear those transmissions can last 100,000 miles before we have to start worrying anything. Max is a great manufacturer.
God. Am I wrong, though?
No, you're not.
Red Bull Racing is at 373 points, while Ferrari is at 302.
Yikes.
Yeah. And mind you, McLaren's at 295.
It's closing down.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, Red Bull's at risk of somehow winning the driver championship and finishing the constructor championship in third. Which should not happen. Here's another thing. These numbers were from before the race, but after qualifying, if I'm remembering right. Checo is very, very close to being both on pace and results the worst teammate Max Verstappen has ever had in any racing series. Beyond karting.
Wow.
The only person who is technically worse is Pierre Gasly, who, mind you, had a season in Formula One and 7 races in the Red Bull.
That's unfortunate.
Yep. Mind you, a Red Bull that never was any consideration given to him. Checo has been in this car for 3 years, 4 years now. There have been adjustments made for him. The team knows him. He's embedded. And honestly, considering how close he was to being the worst teammate, I wouldn't be surprised if after Silverstone he is.
Yeah. I don't have much to say. I agree with all the points. I mean, I don't wish bad on anybody, but I really want to see Danny Rick in that seat.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing is maybe Danny Rick is gone, right? But he's not going to be worse than Checo. No one's
Very much,
going to be worse. We'll continue this discussion after our guest.
Oh, is he here? Yep. Oh, boy. Okay. All right. Now it's time to go Eli 5 mode. Okay. Just let me know when he's in the room, and I'll get to mansplaining really quick.
He should be able to hear you.
Hello?
Okay. It's in. It's in. All right. All right. I guess that means we're officially in it. All right. Welcome, new listeners, and Woodrow Wilson. So good to meet you, Woodrow. Guys, Woodrow Wilson is back from the dead, and he's going to be on our podcast. You know, I talked to Woodrow in the grave, and he said, you know, Levi, it's my one dream, my one hope to be on your guest segment so I can be mansplained by Eli. That's the one thing I want before I die. And I said, you're already dead. He's like, oh, right. That's right. Anyway, so if you're new to this segment, Eli 5, it's called Explain Like I'm 5. So what we're going to do here is we have Woodrow Wilson with us. Hi, Woodrow. And Woodrow has a
Hello.
question. Oh, love you, buddy. Woodrow has worked hard to come up with a question because, like a lot of people, Woodrow doesn't have a ton of knowledge on racing and stuff. He wants to learn, but specifically, he wants to learn from Eli's mouth. So Woodrow has a question. He's going to ask that question, but Eli has to explain it to him in 5 minutes. Like he's 5 in 5 minutes. And if he doesn't explain like he's 5, he gets kicked off the podcast. It's as simple as that. He needs to be competent.
If I
Alrighty.
leave, I change all the
So
passwords
without
and take it
further
down
ado,
with me.
love you too, buddy. All right. So
Hey, you'd still have
before
the
we begin,
Instagram.
that's true. I'll just manage my own Instagram. I'll do a pretend podcast where I talk to myself. It's okay. But at least Woodrow won't like turn on me. You're a good friend, Woodrow. And in fact, before we begin the segment, Woodrow, tell us a bit about yourself. Thanks for coming on.
Hello. So, Woodrow Wilson, I was a president, of course. But they didn't have very good cars back in my day, or cars at all. I don't actually remember when I was born. However, I do like cars. I think I got a pretty quick one recently. I've only listened about 3 hours of the podcast so far, but I'm working on another episode. So, honored to be here.
Oh, welcome on.
Thank you, Mr. 28th President of the United States. And
Hello?
also, we're going to put a... Wait, what?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Eli, help.
I can hear you now.
I'm not a wizard.
Eli, are we good, Eli? Are
As
we
far as I can
okay,
tell, I can
Eli?
hear both of you.
Oh, sorry about that, Woodrow. Sorry, he had a phone call from the White House. So now that we know a bit about Woodrow, it's great to have him here. And Woodrow, whenever you're ready, go ahead and ask us that question, buddy.
All right. So, what would a is where you're using regular cars
This would explain how he's back from the dead, because he is a
Be a-
robot.
good
He,
Hello?
Okay, you're not
we're
a
so
robot
sorry,
anymore.
Woodrow.
I heard something
Yeah.
car,
As-
something good. Why is it everything he says that isn't the question is fine?
Woodrow.
Racing.
You know what? Give her one more try, Woodrow. I feel like your grave might be interfering with the connection. Give her one more try, and if that try doesn't work, go ahead and just text me your question, and I'll tell Eli. But give her one more try. Yeah. Okay. All right. So hopefully Woodrow can send me the cue through text. I feel so bad that his grave is interfering with this connection so badly.
Look, the fact that he was secretly an animatronic is a lot less concerning than zombies.
It's true. Just think that the 20th president of the United States was an animatronic just waiting to take over through means of this podcast, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. I feel bad too because Woodrow texted me before this and said, I don't think I have enough signal, but of course I never read that text. Listeners, it's my fault as usual. Well, we're working as far as we can, but
I think from the bits and pieces, he was asking something about a not stock cars in the race car, but like stock showroom car. What would be good to look for a racing series based on those? But I'm not 100% certain.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I kind of heard that too, but I can't be super certain. Where man, like remind me, the listener, to never like dig myself in a grave because the signal is just not good. Feel bad. I don't think Woodrow can even send me a text. Like wherever, however deep he is into the ground, it doesn't want to send a Wi-Fi signal. Honestly, you know what? This is good for the podcast. You know, people can say what they want about awkward silence, Eli, but I don't think this is awkward. I think, Woodrow just left. No, it's fine. We need to encounter situations like these, right? Totally.
I mean, hey, I was actually kind of thinking about this. Just as a completely aside thing, to see if he can join again or get back with us or something. I was actually thinking about this. It is possible that we could, in the future, instead, just have the people record their question. So that we wouldn't have to deal with scheduling conflicts.
That's what a lot of good podcasts do, and I think we should do that. But
especially because
for the day, I'll disagree with you because, yeah.
I was going to say, especially because we have a lot of friends that are unavailable on Thursday nights when we normally record.
That's true. We're weird guys. But have no fear, the guest segment isn't over. And in fact, we're about to just get started because by the little 3 dots on my screen, Woodrow is contacting me. He's about to send the text. He's about to send the question. So hold on to your seatbelts tight. Eli might still get kicked off this podcast tonight. We don't know. Just depends on how good Woodrow's question is. But Woodrow, if you manage to listen to this podcast, which I think what worried me the most out of today, like honestly this week, is that Woodrow has listened to more than one of our episodes. I think that's a seriously bad sign of our dear president's mental health.
I was going to say, I don't think we have a single episode that's over 3 hours, which implies that he's listened to at least one and a bit of another.
Oh, no, he's told me he's listened to an entire one. So he's on 2. This is very bad. This is very bad for his mental health.
Is he secretly French?
Okay, so the 3 dots. Oh, man, I don't know. Can Woodrow Wilson speak French? Well, the texting stopped, so hopefully this means it's sending. I feel like this is the equivalent of when you're trying to show your. I don't know if this happened to you, Eli, but when I was a kid and I would build something functional out of Legos, it didn't have to be a big model, but if it was just functional, if there were things that were supposed to work in it, like an elevator, it would work and work and work, and I was so excited, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, come look at this thing," and wouldn't work in front of her. Yeah. When you this is giving that same energy of hey, everybody, listen to Eli 5, and then when Eli 5 happens, nothing actually. The one time we try to prove that we actually have friends, we don't have any friends.
I decided to get up and grab a bottle of sake, so...
No, you will not, because the question just came through.
I didn't say I was going to. I said I already did. I've got a mini fridge full of them.
Oh, well, Eli, or listeners, Eli is also a nanobot, so he can drink just thinking about it. But guys, Woodrow's question has come through, and Eli, ready your mouth, lips, and ears for this question. So, the question is, are you ready?
Yep.
From listener Woodrow Wilson in Hillsboro, Ohio, right? I forget.
Greenfield.
No, Washington D.C. Washington D.C. Road racing series with everyday people with their everyday drivers under $30,000 original cost limit. Good idea, bad idea? Question mark. P.S. I think my car might win 2007 Pontiac Solstice GXP, 260 horsepower, 260 foot-pound torque, stock, 2,800, 2,900 pounds curb weight. Did you want? Oh, did you get that, Eli? I think I
Yes.
get what he's getting at.
Yeah. So
You did?
he's asking about what would it basically sounds like oh god, what is that called? There's actually motocross. Basically there are actually forms of racing series like that. They are not generally head-to-head racing series because most people don't want to risk, rubbing their daily drivers against each other and having to deal with bodywork damage. But they do them as time trials where basically they're set up in a lot with certain agility courses effectively that you run set in cones. So it is actually a thing, and it's how a lot of people get into racing early on because it doesn't risk your car as much as a traditional racing series. And oftentimes that leads to people growing into something like Honda Civic racing, which is generally older Honda Civics, usually the was it the Gen 7 or Gen 8 Civic, the like 2009 era mine, basically. But doing racing like that, racing those on the track, since they're cheap, you can get a million parts for them to be able to repair them and everything. But yeah, no, that's actually a way that a lot of people get into racing, is going to track days and events like that, where they'll have time trials and leaderboards for that. And then, you can always get into amateur racing series off of that. That is certain things like that where your cars will be classified based on basically their horsepower. And similar horsepower cars will be stuck against each other, and you get to go around, do some laps. I think Mid-Ohio actually does something like that, if I'm remembering right.
Is that your final answer?
That was more of a question for you, because I was just saying.
Oh, so I stopped.
Had you heard anything about that?
Well, I have not, but Eli's question was 2 minutes, 10 seconds, and 21 tenths of a second. So unfortunately, Eli gets to stay on the show. But also, I actually haven't heard of that really. I'm not super into stuff like that. But also, like, I feel like
motocross.
I almost
autocross,
wonder if
that's
this is a
what it's
challenge. I was gonna say, like,
Oh yeah,
Woodrow's
he's bragging
question
about his car.
almost sound like. Yeah, no, he's totally. I think he wants to do it. I think Woodrow actually wants to race. He's like, my car would totally win. 2007 Pontiac Solstice, GXP, 260 horsepower, 2,900 curb weight. But the fact that he said good idea, bad idea makes me think, if we say good idea, I think he might actually want to do this.
There is also start the timer again. There was also in.
Oh no, okay, all right, go ahead.
I want to say Washington, the 24 hours of lemons, which I believe is you have to buy a car for under, I want to say $500 and do a 24-hour endurance race with it.
Oh my god.
I forget what the budget is, but it's something ridiculously low like that. Do a 24-hour endurance race with just a complete beater. You are allowed to replace everything on the car in the race, unlike Le Mans, where you're restricted with certain powertrain things. No, you, like, door falls off, you can slap it back on. engine blows up, throw a new engine in it, whatever you want, as long as your budget is under a certain amount. Now I'm done.
That sounds amazing. Eli, I kind of want to do that with you next year.
We would need a team because you.
I mean, I got it. What do you think you are? You're the team. And apparently Luke would totally. I mean, Woodrow would totally hop on. Apparently, there's at least 3 people who'd be on this team. Anyway, well, if that's the end of the question, I was thoroughly entertained. And honestly, applause to Woodrow for coming on the show, but also that was an awesome question, Woodrow. Thank you very much for being our friend, coming on to and battling a really bad signal just to be with us. You know, Woodrow, I'll give you a hug next time I see you. That was nice. Well,
Ohio Valley
I'm
Region
satisfied and
SCCA.
oh, it's sanctioned by the SCCA.
No, that's just the local. That's Ohio's like club sport and autocross body for amateur racing.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember anything about the 24 hours of lemons. I should see when that is and see if there's a stream of it so we can cover it the next time it happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep, I was right.
I'm texting Woodrow.
It's under $500.
That is, Eli. We have to do it.
Oh, apparently they do it in different locations now.
Ohio.
Illinois. I believe Illinois would be the closest one. They have one. They do it at Road America. Wait, crap! The Illinois one happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
We could actually cover this next week.
But... oh,
Yeah, apparently
so
they do one in
timed.
September at Road America. They can do rallies now too. Hold up. They have a 3-day rally later this month that runs from Indianapolis to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, going through Cincinnati.
Wow.
What I'm saying is we've got content.
And what's sad is this will be better racing than the entire season of F1 combined.
Probably.
Oh well. Speaking of F1, I guess we don't really have any. Well, I guess we do kind of have news with F1. If you want, you know what? Let's go and get into the news section. I'm the host. I can make this power move. But thank you again, Woodrow. What do you say?
I said you are God for a day of a podcast.
Yeah, I'm God
Very
LeClaire for one day. Yeah, the most relevant podcast. Well, thank you again, Woodrow, for opening up that can of worms and giving us that awesome question. One of the best questions we've ever had, to be honest. All right, news.
It's the only question that's given us extra content.
Yeah, that question single-handedly saved our podcast. Yeah, that's a great question because now we have another racing series to follow. But yeah,
I just thought it was the one race. I didn't realize they have a whole series.
It's so interesting to think that more people than just Woodrow thought about this.
I mean, I knew that they had because like I knew about like autocross and race and like clubs and stuff like that. I did not know just how deep the 24 Hour of Lemons went.
Yeah, we'll have to cover that. We'll cover that later this month when F1 is the only race series going on that weekend. Anyway, great discussion, and we'll just get on to news then. I'll start with my piece since that was Eli's segment. Um, First things first, we'll head over to the world of NASCAR, and what happened to me, this was interesting news. Now, Eli did not know who Haley Deegan is, correct? Do you have any knowledge of Haley Deegan besides what you heard recently?
The only thing I know about her is that she was kind of crap in Xfinity and got replaced, and for some reason people made a big deal out of it.
Well, there's a reason people made a big deal of that. So I'll give Haley Deegan's quick story, and I'll give my opinion on the news. So I first heard about Haley Deegan in 2018 while I was playing the NASCAR Heat Mobile on my phone in study hall, and I was going through paint schemes and cars I could buy, and one of them was Haley Deegan's number 38 Monster Energy Toyota. The reason Haley Deegan, of course, is so hyped up is because the year Haley Deegan got any level of kind of media coverage was the year Danica Patrick left, and like, oh, finally a new woman in NASCAR. And I'm all for women in NASCAR, honestly. But unfortunately, with Haley Deegan's career, they've almost tried to push her into stardom quicker than she was ready for it. Where, like, she actually was pretty good in ARCA Menard series, like from 2018, 2020, I believe. I don't think she got her first taste of a truck until 21, but between those years, like, she was one of the most hyped up drivers in any series, was because she was a girl who was winning. And she got moved, of course, to the truck series, and then that was in 21 or 22, I believe. And she had gotten rides here and there, and it was nothing great, but nothing to worry about. I forget if she got her first full truck ride last year or 2022. I just know that it wasn't particularly impressive, and it wasn't that great because she got a really, really good opportunity with Thor Sport Racing, who is the best team in trucks. And she's also, by the way, in Ford's development driver program. She's always going to be driving a Ford, probably. But yeah, it wasn't a great run in trucks. And people, there's always a lot of blowing up because Haley Deegan arguably gets the most attention out of any young star right now because she was good in ARCA and she's a woman. And of course has a lot of like YouTube stuff going on. She's having into YouTube, so she has a large media following. But yeah, so her trucks series run hadn't been the most impressive thing, and there was a very controversial move that happened at the start of this year, where before giving her any more time to improve in trucks, which she desperately needed, before giving her any more time to improve there, they just AM Racing and Xfinity Series decided to throw her into the number 15 Ford Mustang this year. Totally jumping series, and a lot of people were skeptical about this. They're like, her truck series run wasn't really good at all. She needs, we don't think she's necessarily bad. Of course, a lot of people have their own opinion on that, but for the most majority, they didn't really think she was bad. She just definitely need a lot more time to mature in a stock car. And she didn't get that. She got thrown into the Xfinity Series this year and has been and I'm not exaggerating, the worst driver because of she's the lowest scoring driver who started every race this year. She's the worst. And it hasn't been good. So what has happened the last 2 weeks is before the Chicago street race, AM Racing decided to get Joey Logano in the car for the weekend. They said this partnership isn't kind of, being as fruitful as we thought it would be. We want to get a Cup Series champion here and see what we can learn from the car. We want to, because we don't want to just improve Haley. We want to improve as a team with the equipment we can give her. So they brought in Joey Logano, and for reference, Haley Deegan hadn't scored a single top 10 this year, and I think she's only been in the top 20 3 times. And Joey Logano's first time out on a course he's not very good at got an 8th place finish. And that says a lot. Granted, you're comparing a young NASCAR driver's talent to a 2-time Cup Series champion talent. but at the same time, it wasn't even close. It was so unclose that like what happened this last week was AM Racing and Haley Diggin decided to part ways, not over this apparently, but over other reasons where their goals weren't aligned. But that's what happened. AM Racing parted ways with Haley Diggin, and that's why it's been a huge deal. Was
For the
because a lot of
goals
people have been
winning.
complaining. What do you say?
He said those goals wouldn't have to have been winning, would they?
No, good race teams win. Um, but yeah, so that's the news. That's why it's been so talked about. Is a lot of people had low hopes going into the year about it, and they were kind of worse than anyone would have expected, unfortunately.
Yeah, because that's
I
like I had heard of
I
her, but I had no idea why people were making a big deal out of it. I didn't realize it's because that she got basically the Red Bull treatment.
yeah, it was kind of like Dr. Helmut Marko thought Haley Diggin, like he saw Haley Diggin like win one go-kart race, decide she was the future of NASCAR, and Helmut Marko threw her out as soon as she wasn't performing, because who would getting thrown to that spot? Now, my opinion on Haley Deegan, personally, just as, of course, as a guy who enjoys racing, is uh, could she be a Cup driver? Unfortunately, we don't have a great sample size to know that yet. I think definitely with enough experience, she could get there. But I am with everybody where I don't think throwing her into the Xfinity Series this year was a good idea. As would any driver who wasn't already doing good in trucks getting thrown into Xfinity. If you're not doing good in your present series, you should take time to get better at it.
I'm gonna say at least 2 seasons.
Yeah. What do you say?
I was gonna say like at least 2 seasons. Like, come on.
Yeah. And if they're still not improving, then keep them there until they improve. And if they're not, just don't bump them up like that. They're not ready for that. So yeah, it was kind of a dumb move by AM Racing. Actually, it wasn't dumb because Haley Deegan has such a huge, is such a huge marketing person. Like she's probably the most marketable driver in NASCAR right now, and like the Xfinity and Truck Series. And if I'm AM Racing, I'm going to make a crap ton of money and attention off of signing Haley Deegan. So why wouldn't I? But at the same time, if I'm AM Racing, I kind of have to look at the statistics and really try to see what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds like
but that's the news. That's why it's a big deal.
I was gonna say sounds like a mistake on their part that might have just like irreversibly damaged her career.
Yeah, no, and that's what a lot of people like. The Deegan sympathizers are mad about that. The Deegan haters are just like see, she can't race. She's not good.
I was gonna
But
be
also,
honest. From everything that I heard going into this, I kind of expected to be on the side of like she was a paid driver who was kind of there for a marketing thing and had no place there. But it sounds like she's actually like could be a competent driver.
and yeah, like I get the hate she gets in the truck series because she hasn't been good, but at the same time, if you were winning races in the Arkham Nard series, you obviously have some level of talent.
Yeah. Well,
So that's the news this week on NASCAR, and that's our opinion. Be it as it is.
my news story that wasn't the Liam Lawson thing that we talked about earlier is not from this week. It is actually from 2021.
Oh yeah.
Is this the first time we're actually talking about 2021 on the podcast? Because I'm pretty sure we've been deliberately avoiding it.
We've never been asked to cover it.
Yeah. So anyway, this week Max Verstappen in an interview pointed out that he probably shouldn't have been racing for at least a couple of months after his crash in Silverstone that year. For anyone who's listened to this far and doesn't know, Lewis and Max crashed, or more accurately, Lewis hit Max, and it was big. 51 G's to the skin.
More. I was about to say, more accurately, Lewis Hamilton tried to murder Max Verstappen once.
He did kind of just like pit maneuver him at 200 miles an hour into a wall.
Hey man, that's dangerous driving.
Like, and then he tried to do it to Charles too. Unfortunately, Charles had noticed what happened earlier and backed out when he was the driver ahead. But anyway, that's irrelevant. At some point, we're going to cover the controversy of 2021, but not today. But we are touching on this because, yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, the G-forces that a driver is subjected to is measured by in-ear monitors that measure how many Gs specifically they took to the head. And Max took 51 Gs. Astronauts take like 6, 7. Surprisingly, he was seemingly fine to race immediately after that. This week he revealed that actually, any races where there were rapid changes going on around him, so like bumps, high contrast advertising, going fast, he would have visibility problems. This man was losing his sight at 200 miles an hour. From what he says, it kind of sounds like he was basically like not able to focus. Like he was losing focus, things were going blurry, or like getting like double vision and stuff like that. To the point where at one point in a race, he was considering just pulling off to the side and retiring the car. And that race was the United States Grand Prix of 2021, which is one of his best races ever. So this man lied on his concussion screening, put in one of his best performances ever while blind, and is only finally admitting it 3 years later.
Yeah, nice. I, does it sound like, all right, that was stupid, but also I get why he did it, because
If he'd sat out a race, he loses the championship.
Yeah, like, to this point, Max doesn't know how Red Bull is going to fare with the new regulations. As far as Max is concerned, this is going to be his potentially first and maybe last shot at ever winning a title.
Yeah. It's like, I 100% get it. And it also, no matter what your opinion on Max is, you hear this and you kind of gotta admit, he's a legend. Just like, this man lives to race and lives to win. And if he isn't, like, he is not worried about dying while doing that.
Are you done making out with Max Verstappen?
I mean, look, man, I also, like, praise Carlos Sainz for hopping in a couple weeks later after getting his appendix removed, or Alex Albon for hopping in a couple weeks later after that, and, you know, drivers for hopping in with COVID, like, right after getting better with COVID, stuff like that. But I also want to, let me see if I can find something.
I am at this point completely convinced that you to Verstappen is me to Hamilton and vice versa.
Hey, now,
But
actually,
I feel, you know what? No, let me talk. I am a Hamilton sympathizer. I think actually it's more Fernando. I have more of the man crush on Fernando.
I was gonna say, a better comparison between you and Hamilton would be me and Vettel.
You know what? I think you're right.
Coming in at their dominance, and then loving them after they became mid.
we can. You know what? I feel like our next safety car special is just going to be arguing about Hamilton's skills, and I'm going to be laughing so hard when he wins in Hungary.
Look, all I'm saying is I've been up for 20 hours straight and currently am halfway through a bottle of sake. So, like, I don't give a crap anymore. I'm here to fight. Where in the world is that? Dang it. I managed to somehow fail to save something that was actually very funny earlier. Which is rather annoying to me. Wait, don't tell me somebody posted on the actual Formula 1 sub and not Formula Dank. Because if they did, they'd be legends. But basically what it was pointing out all of the different things that drivers over the years have struggled with when they've gotten back in the car, like Schumacher coming back after his crash, Lewis coming back with COVID and still having long COVID symptoms afterwards, and Checo driving like a Formula 2 car. You know, different people's handicaps. Yes, it was entirely a Checo slander joke.
That you did all that work just to make fun of Checo.
Look, the man should have retired in 2022.
Honestly,
Yeah.
After that legend, if Checo retired at the end of 2021, he would be forever remembered as like a man. That was a cool guy. Like 2 wins, yeah, but like, how about going out when you just defended the heck out of Lewis Hamilton so Max could win the title? Like, why didn't he go out after that?
The thing is, the best times for Checo to retire was 2021 or last year. 2021, having actually been able to fight and defend against Lewis his first year in a new team. 2023, for the first time ever, giving Red Bull a 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. Right? Like, it was obvious. The thing is, I can understand wanting to keep going in 2021, but the thing is, like, 2022, it's obvious. Right? 2023, it was obvious he wasn't ever going to do better. It was obvious he peaked. But now we're kind of... Here's the thing I'll say. A lot of drivers do this. A lot of drivers stay past their prime, and it hurts their reputation. Now you have people like Alonso and Hamilton and, Kimi. Even to an extent, Schumacher, who can stay past their prime, but because they were so legendary in their prime, they're still remembered well, and it doesn't really hurt their reputation. But for every one of those, you've got a Massa, a Button, right, who stayed past their prime, and are kind of just remembered as being uncompetitive midfielders. And Checo's falling into that category. Where, like, if he'd retired last year, or the year before, he'd have been remembered as being a driver who got his chance too late into his career. If he retires at the end of 2021, he'd be a legend.
He'll always be remembered as a bro.
Yeah. He has been outscored by a Haas for the last, I believe, since Monaco. Every race since Monaco, if I'm remembering correctly. If the championship started at Monaco, he would be behind Haas.
Well,
Yeah. Like, I like him. He isn't a terrible driver. But you gotta know when to give up. And I understand Red Bull's idea, because what's kind of come out along with the leaks and rumors about his performance clauses is that Horner gave him the contract extension as early as he did because for the last 2 years, after getting a new contract, Checo's performance increased, right? So Horner thinking, okay, he's nervous about not getting a new contract. It's like, he's not doing terrible. He's not quite where we want him, but if we just give him confidence that he's going to be here at least until the new regulations, that should tide him over, help him get back, help him rebuild. And then he got worse. And
yeah.
Like, the thing is, it's not even like you can blame it on luck or on the team at this point. A lot of the problems are just him.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to see it. I mean, it hurt when we saw Danny Rick at McLaren, too. It's like, I love him, but, like, he shouldn't have gone to McLaren. And, yeah.
And in both of these instances, Christian Horner was responsible for the career revival.
To be fair, yeah. Like, Horner had always been clear that he never wanted Danny Rick to leave.
If I'm a team principal and I have a team like Max and Daniel, that's the perfect team. I don't want either of them leaving.
Yeah. I genuinely...
Because even if Max or
Go ahead.
yeah, like, they're so competent that, but they're also such good friends. Like, we don't know how big of a title fight would have happened, but if one or the other start weighing a bunch, the other would have at least been competent, very, very competent.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, even when everything blew up between them, it didn't blow up between them, if you know what I'm saying, right? Like,
Yeah,
they didn't hold it against each other. Danny Rick left because he's like, okay, I'm never going to get priority. He didn't hold it against Max, right? He didn't hold a grudge against Max for Baku in, what was it, 2017? 2018?
was that? Yeah, 18.
Yeah, like, he didn't hold that against Max. He's like, yeah, it was stupid. It sucked. It was terrible. But, like, let's move on. I genuinely think that there are few other drivers who could be in a competitive battle for the championship with their teammate and still get along with each other better than Max and Daniel. The funny thing is, now that I think about it, every single driver pairing that I can think of that would still be able to get along with each other in a championship battle, almost all of them, Max is one of them. Because, like, especially, like, after last week, I'm pretty sure Max and Lando, even if they were they were teammates in a tight title fight, and, like, you had mistakes, battling, taking each other out, stuff like that, I'm pretty sure they would still be able to get along with each other, personally. And I think Max and Charles would be able to, too.
But yeah.
Considering Max's reputation, that's a weird thing to realize.
Yeah.
Every driver
Well,
pairing
Max
that
and
I can
Lewis would
think
totally be
of.
friends.
Yeah. No. That's like one of the few drivers that I can. But like every driver pairing where I can think of, like if they crash each other out, it's them still being able to get along afterwards, even as teammates in a title fight. I struggle to think of pairings that don't include Max where they would still get along. Especially not ones that aren't like completely ridiculous that they would be in that situation, right? Like I think Stroll and Albon are like they probably could, but in what world is Stroll in a title fight?
Yeah.
Like even Max and Alonso, if they crashed each other out as teammates in a battle for the win, would probably still heck, they would probably respect each other more knowing those two. I'm realizing it's
But
because
yeah,
Max I'm realizing it's because Max loves winning so much that he perfectly respects you if you're willing to kill someone for it, even if that person is him.
it's kind of like Palpatine, where the more powerful you are, like it doesn't matter what your opinions or qualities are, as long as you're powerful, Palpatine respects you.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those situations where it's like, I'm pretty sure that Max is just like, yeah, no, if you're willing to murder someone for the win, you got my respect. Even if that person is me. I don't know how to feel about that. Great, because it means that he could have an actual competitive teammate against him. Which, as we've seen, if Red Bull wants to keep winning championships, having a designated number one driver ain't working. Think about it. What team? Yeah, you look at the standings. And Mercedes, two evenly paired drivers. McLaren, two evenly paired drivers. Ferrari, do they treat Sainz like a second class citizen? Sure. But like skill wise, they're fairly evenly paired drivers. And those are the three teams that are challenging Red Bull in the constructors' standings. It's not until you get to Aston Martin where there's a clear number one and number two driver in another team. What I'm saying is Red Bull. Look, I love Danny Rick. But, I'm gonna be fair, you're taking a gamble if you bring him back. He's not been competitive in this new era. He's not even really raced in this new era for long. There is one driver that was able to beat you last year, and he beat you on merit. He beat you on pace. He doesn't have a seat. Now, to be fair, Yos and Carlos Sainz Sr. would murder each other. But hey, look at it this way. Suddenly, that's two headaches you no longer have to deal with anymore, because they're both dead. Look on the upsides. If you need a
Are you
consultant,
saying
I'm available.
you want Sainz in that second seat?
He's their best option.
Man, I want Carlos and Daniel in there. Like I'm okay with either one. I want Daniel in there more, but
I'm okay with either one,
I
and
don't know
for
how
like
much.
just nostalgia reasons, I want him more. But like, I do think Sainz would be the better option.
It's hard. I almost don't see Sainz wanting to on his end.
I think Sainz wouldn't want it because he knows that he would be the number two driver.
Yeah.
Like Ferrari, they're at least equal enough that he'll get equal treatment. Like, at least at the start of the season, he knows that. Whereas in Red Bull, it would be his best chance at winning more races, but he wouldn't really be given the chance to win the title. Actually, that was something that I did want to talk about. I almost completely forgot about it because I'm completely exhausted. How many race winners do you think we're going to have this year now?
Well, we got wait, 6? Do we have? Yeah, we have 6.
Max,
I think
Lando.
we can end. I think we can end with Oscar Piastri getting his first career win. But I say we're no more than 7.
I must be missing one at this point.
Both Mercedes, both McLaren, or both Ferraris, both Mercedes, Lando, and Max.
That's right, I completely forgot about Monaco. I'm so used to writing Charles off at Monaco that I literally forgot he won this year.
He broke the curse.
I'm genuinely so used to that like he was not even on my radar. But no, I'm in your boat too. I think we're gonna end up with 7. I think it's gonna be Piastri. I don't think it's gonna be Checo.
If Checo wins, I quit.
Now the real interesting thing is, which one does Piastri win? Because I think there's a good chance I could see it being Spa.
It has to be Italy. It because of I don't know.
I was gonna
I feel like
say
Italy is a great underdog track.
well, I could see like Spa, I could see Monza, and Qatar. Spa and Monza specifically because the McLaren is good in high speed.
Yeah.
And then Qatar, I mean, we already know that Piastri's good there. He won the sprint there last year. Yeah, I would expect to see him win. Like, honestly, I think I'm at the point where I'd be more surprised, especially because I honestly think if McLaren hadn't messed up their strategy, that there was a fair chance that this would have been Piastri's first win. Because before McLaren messed up the strategy, causing a massive gap between him and Lando, Piastri was the faster of the two.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that if McLaren had instead double stacked them or done a split strategy, but the split strategy being one pit's covering Max when he does, and the other pit's when Lewis does, at the very least, they would be racing for it, and I think that Piastri would have had the edge.
Yeah.
So, like, I think Piastri has finally started to settle in, started to figure out tires. So, I would not be surprised if his first win comes this year. I think it's more likely than not at this point. Which, to be fair, I know for a fact that 7 winners is the most since 2021. But I think 7 winners would actually match 2021, wouldn't it?
Well, we got Checo. Well, Bottas and Checo both had 1. Hamilton 8. Max 10. No Ferrari wins in 21. Esteban Ocon.
Danny Rick.
Danny Rick. That's right. Well, that's it, right? That's 22 races. There were 6 in 21. There were 5 in 22. There was Gulp 3 last year. Granted, there were only 4 in 2016. Or 3. Wait. Were there only 3
Lewis,
in 2016?
Bottas, Vettel, Max.
16. 2016.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. Lewis, Nico, Max.
I was gonna say, was there any, I thought Max won both the Red Bull wins that year. Right or no? Did he not win again until Malaysia? So there was maybe 4 winners in 2016, I think.
I was gonna say I wanted to say it was 4. But I could be wrong.
But yeah, we have already tied 2021 with winners. And what was the last time we had, 7 winners? Let's go by year. So 2020, the Mercedes boys, of course. The one Red Bull boy. Pierre. Pierre. No Ferraris won. Rats, was there? No, there had to be more than Lewis
Yeah,
won 11 that year.
2016.
Bottas won
2016, Danny Rick won at Malaysia.
Oh, okay. All right, so 4 and 16. So I'm trying to think, when was the last time we had more than 6 winners? 2012 at least. 2012 at least had at least 7 winners that year. But yeah, like 2020, I think only had 4 because Hamilton 11, Max 3, Bottas 2, Pierre 1. Yeah, that's 4 in 2020. 2019, we had Seb 1, Charles 2, Bottas 4, Hamilton 11 again. And
5 winners
I
in
want to
2017.
say there was either 5 or 6 in 2019. 2018 had Raikkonen, Vettel, Lewis. Oh, 2018 is where Bottas didn't have any, right?
I think so. See, this is where you're
And
useful. You
2018
just like got a magic mind for stats. Yes.
I love you too. And so both Red Bull guys won that year. So I think 2018 had 5 winners. Dang. So we even 6 winners is even uncommon apparently recently.
I was gonna say,
Let
yeah, now I'm
alone
suddenly
potentially
realizing we might actually have a kind of legendary season on our hands.
That's so crazy. Because we're only barely halfway. We are halfway. And we already have 6 different winners. Now, granted, the most I can see is 7, but it would be an amazing season if Oscar Piastri got his first win, maybe somewhere else, and we got an 8th different winner at like Monza, like maybe, I don't know who's really fast, but honest. Let's say Alex Albon wins at Italy.
Well,
but we have
well, I was about to point out, you have to remember, Haas has suddenly gone from being like one of the worst teams to consistently being both drivers in the points and not like the bottom of the points. Haas kind of came out of nowhere this season.
I'm just so glad we went from the least amount of winners in F1 history last year to all of a sudden we're probably going to be tied for either the most or almost there.
Like, the thing is, like, I could see if anyone was gonna pull like an Ocon at Hungary or a Gasly at Monza, I think it's one of the Haas boys this year.
Nico gets his first podium. Let's go.
Imagine if Nico's first podium is a win.
He should retire. If I'm Nico, I have to retire at the end of the year.
You cannot go to kick. Well, so here's the thing. 2015 is definitely not competing for most wins. Most winners.
I think any of the Mercedes years are competing for most wins.
True, though you gotta remember, 2017 was close.
That's right. 2017 had 6, right?
5, if I'm remembering right.
Wait, that would. Oh, Kimmy didn't win in 2017. You're right. So 5. My brain automatically always inserts at least one like bogey Kimmy win every year.
That's the thing, because you always just remember that at some random point he just won a race out of nowhere, but you can never quite pinpoint it because it just is kind of surreal at that point.
And you know what's hilarious? The first Formula One race I ever watched on TV was his final win at Coda.
I am back to
And that's the
2013,
hilarious
and
stuff.
we're still only at 5.
So it turns out 2021 was actually a good year for Formula One, not just turns out in several categories.
You were exactly right. 2012 is where you have to go back before you find more than 6 winners.
Was there 7 or was there 8?
7 by my count. Button.
Wait.
Alonso.
I want to guess. No. I want to guess. Alonso, Button, Hamilton, Weber, Vettel, Raikkonen, because he totally won that Lotus.
Yep.
And is it Pastor Maldonado? Is that the year he won?
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, yes! Oh, Barcelona.
Yep. I was honestly kind of surprised you got that.
Oh, Eli, I have been waiting to showcase these talents for years. I'm so happy. I remembered that. I was like, when I got to Raikkonen at Singapore, I'm like, okay, there was one more random win. Well, I love how the news segment quickly went to try and remember the last time we had this many winners in F1.
It was a dull week this week, let's be real.
Guys, for another week, this has been the official therapy session for motorsports fans.
I mean, really.
Honestly, like if we're just not talking as friends but talking as businessmen, I mean, I don't have any more news really.
Same. I'm back to 2008, and 7 is still the most I can find.
Guys, we're gonna continue this discussion off air.
Yeah, no, we should probably sign out, because, like, this has been mostly silence.
Silence trying to remember the last time there was this many winners. All right. I'm going to put an official end to this. It's 9:27. We've been at it long enough. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. The preview next week, you can look forward to the 6 hours of Sao Paulo discussion, along with, hopefully, a good IndyCar race or two, and whatever else happens in the world of motorsports. But, guys, I've been Levi, accompanied by Eli, and this has been the case of Weaver Fever.
Sayonara.